I've learned over the years that you guys are my teachers. You know, the journeys you bring through the door on a Sunday morning and the journey that I share, and each one is different, but somehow those journeys collide on a Sunday morning and out pops whatever, you know? It's what we are. It hit me a little bit again this morning. For the last 6 years, I come here early with my wonder dog, Harley, and we walk out back. And I ask Harley when we're out back, I said, what should I talk about today? And he tells me, and then I poison you with my thoughts. And I didn't have anybody to bounce it off of this morning. I remember, you know, 6 years ago when Harley came into our life, Quentin's special ed teacher in junior high, her cousin had this big dog, and they had a new baby, and they both worked full time, and they just couldn't do it. So they wanted a good home, and I called them, and I remember that Sunday afternoon when they drove up into the parking lot with the window down, and Harley's big head sticking out, and Q is there going, Dad, that's a big dog. And I took him to my house, and I took him to the church, and I said, this is where your dog is going to live. And it's easy to exaggerate what people mean to us and what our pets mean to us. I mean, people always tell me, you know, when I talk about my mom and dad, listen to what Don says, divide by 3, and the truth is in there somewhere. But you know, when you look at the world around us, when we look at the tulips and the trees and the birds and the bees and dogs and cats and all the crazy critters that are a part of our life, we discover that life is bigger than just us. That's why my walks with Harley out back have opened my eyes to help me remember that, Don, your journey is not half as important as you think it is. There's a whole world out there, humans and non-humans that God gives us, and sometimes in our haste, we're just too busy to notice and appreciate what we have. And so I look at the back, I see the bricks, I look at the back of the church, I see the high school, I see the traffic on LaGrange Road, I see the sunrise, and wow, you know, Harley in a way taught me without saying a word not to take this stuff for granted. It was a week ago Sunday, it was early in the morning, and I was emptying the trash, which is one of the few things I know how to do. And so it was early Sunday morning, I opened up the dumpster, and there's a raccoon laying at the bottom of the dumpster. And I'm not a real raccoon fan, but the poor thing was, you know, way at the bottom, and he had those eyes, and he just looked at me like, help. And I said, Harley, come here, look who's here. And so I got a stepladder, and I put it in the dumpster. And then Harley and I went on Nickerson Bridge and washed out the door, and sure enough, the raccoon climbed up the stepladder, and Harley went, yes! You know, I never cheered for a raccoon before. But that's one of God's creatures. Why God made raccoons, I have no idea, but they're part of the creation. But the two things I'll never forget was last year, it was about 4:15, and I had to be at somewhere at 4:30, and I was getting ready to lock up the church, and one of the kids from Sandburg walked over here. And he comes in, I'm late to my appointment. Like my appointments are that important? Anyway, I wanted to have him come in real quick and leave. So he comes in the door and he says, Pastor Don, would it be okay if I come in and pray? I mean, one of my classmates passed away with cancer, and I just need to pray. Well, yeah. So he comes in here and he kneels, and so I go in the back and I lock up the church. I need to get out and get to my next thing. And as I come back, and I can't find Harley. I come back in here and I look in the sanctuary, and there's Harley laying at the feet of the young man praying for his classmate. And it's like Harley looks at me saying, Don, what are you in a hurry for? In life, what's more important? This young man's grief or your appointment, which really doesn't make all that much difference? And then last Tuesday, it was the day that we took Harley to be put to sleep, and our mailman, saw Harley every day for the last 6 years, changed his route so he could spend some time with Harley. And the mailman comes in, and for a half an hour, he sits next to Harley and just pets him to say goodbye. And Harley looks at me again, and I thought of that song, slow down, you move too fast. You got to make this moment last. And I thought to myself, so many times over the years, without saying a word, he has told me, slow down. You move too fast. This is the moment, and it's got to last, because that is what life is all about. You know, from tulips in the garden to a dog wagging its tail, just hanging out with you guys on Sunday morning, holding hands with a guy that I used to play racquetball with, and now he has Alzheimer's, and we just sit there and hold hands together. So often it's life's simple things that teach us what's important and where God's majesty is. You know, I don't know a lot about religion, which is painfully obvious to most of you. But I went to college for 4 years. I went to seminary for 4 years after that. 8 years learning about religion, trying to find out how to be a minister. In those 8 years, I never heard anything about dollar stores. They didn't teach me to respect raccoons. They didn't teach me how to set up tables and chairs for a spaghetti dinner. They didn't teach me about having a shot of whiskey with Mr. Fix-It at his kitchen table when he needed somebody to talk to. In fact, I realized all they did was make religion complicated. They talked about the rules and how we're different and who's saved and who's not saved. And then I read the gospel lesson for today. Jesus is about to leave this earth, and he tells his followers, "Where I am going, you cannot come." And the disciples get nervous. Well, how are people going to know about you? How will people know that we are your disciples? And Jesus says, "I give you a new commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you." If you want people to know you're my disciple, then you love others as I have loved you. We've kind of messed that up. That's all Jesus wanted. He said, now it's up to you, which means it's up to us to love one another. And you can't put that on a sign, and you don't learn that from a book. It comes from the heart. Sometimes our textbook just might be as simple as a mailman and a dog. Amen. If you're able to, please rise for the creed. It's on page 105.